Click, clack. The dry, cold sound of metal striking metal rang out sharply, cutting through the noisy bustle of the public arrivals hall at Lincoln City International Airport, LIA. It came right after the sharp pain as two wrists were clamped tight by the cold steel rings. Nadia Sharma, currently under the temporary cover of Isabel Moreau, gritted her teeth slightly, trying to control her breathing in the face of the sudden and brutal assault. The pristine white form-fitting dress, part of a sophisticated disguise plan, now further highlighted the image of a beautiful black woman being restrained amidst a curious crowd. "Get your hands off me!" Nadia's voice lowered, losing its initial cool distance, now laced with controlled anger and a touch of disbelief. "What the hell are you doing?" Officer Ben Carter, the younger of the two policemen, was the one directly applying the handcuffs to her wrists. He did this with a certain clumsiness, but no less force, seemingly wanting to compensate for his inexperience with brute strength. Standing right beside Officer Kyle Thompson, the instigator, his face flushed red with anger and wounded pride. Just minutes before, his suggestive remarks, indecent comments about Nadia's appearance and attire, along with his implicitly suggestive touch, had been bluntly and icily rejected by her. That refusal, especially from a black woman he considered easy, had infuriated him. "Resisting the police, huh?" Thompson roared, his voice deliberately amplified to drown out the surrounding whispers and justify his next action. "I told you don't play hard to get. Who do you think you are to turn us down, daring to refuse an offer from the police?" Carter tightened the cuffs further, causing Nadia to wince slightly in pain. He avoided the eyes of passengers who were starting to raise their phones to record. "You have no right to arrest me just because I refused your indecent proposition," Nadia stated clearly, though her voice trembled slightly with pain and anger. "This is blatant abuse of power." "Abuse of power?" Thompson sneered, a twisted, malicious smile on his face. "You're resisting an officer. You have a suspicious demeanor. Add the charge of illegal activity. That's enough right to cuff you. Cuff her. Take her to the security office for processing." He delivered the last sentence as if issuing a legitimate order, though he himself knew the real reason behind this action. The cold handcuffs were securely fastened. Nadia stood there in the middle of the crowded airport lobby, the unwilling center of attention. The pristine white dress contrasted sharply with her cuffed hands behind her back and the brutality of the two police officers. She no longer tried to physically struggle. It was futile and could compromise her cover. Instead, she held her head high, her posture exuding resilience and subtle defiance. Her mind, trained through countless dangerous situations, began working at full capacity, analyzing the situation, assessing the risks, and searching for countermeasures. The two young police officers, driven by prejudice, arrogance, and a sudden burst of anger, had absolutely no idea that they had just made a fatal mistake by daring to interfere with an operative on assignment. The long flight from Geneva to Lincoln City had left Nadia Sharma feeling somewhat fatigued, but the inherent vigilance of a seasoned operative remained ever present. She had just successfully concluded a crucial phase of an operation tracking an international arms smuggling network in Europe and was en route back to Langley for a direct debriefing and new instructions. To ensure safety and secrecy for her journey, she was using a meticulously prepared temporary cover. Isabel Moreau, a young, successful fashion designer of French-African descent, arriving in the U.S. to attend a major fashion event. The French passport, credit cards, business cards, even a few sample outfits in her small silver suitcase, everything was perfect, sufficient to deceive routine checks. The form-fitting designer white dress and a somewhat haughty, distant demeanor were also part of that cover. The purpose was to draw attention to a glamorous, fashionable exterior, diverting focus from her true identity, a specially trained, dangerous, and highly effective CIA operative. However, The very cover designed to hide in plain sight through its conspicuousness inadvertently became the target of two unexpected individuals, Officers Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter of the Lincoln City Police Department. These two young officers were assigned routine patrol duty in the international arrivals area of the airport. Thompson, despite only being on the force for a few years, had quickly gained a reputation on his shift as someone with a condescending attitude, prone to bullying the vulnerable and harboring deep-seated racial and gender biases. He frequently made inappropriate remarks and actions, but had avoided serious repercussions thanks to skillful cover-ups and the complicity of a few colleagues in his group. Carter, conversely, was a recent police academy graduate, still quite green and lacking confidence. To fit in and gain Thompson's acceptance, Carter often tried to appear tough by echoing his older partner's actions and words, including misconduct. When Nadia Sharma emerged from the customs checkpoint, her exotic beauty, her dark skin striking against the pristine white dress, combined with her somewhat cold, vigilant demeanor, immediately caught Thompson's eye. "Hey, Carter, look at that!" Thompson nudged his partner, his leering eyes making no attempt to hide his desire. "Prime stuff. Black but smooth, dressed to kill. Probably some special kind of model or actress." His prejudice instantly assigned Nadia a label based on her appearance and skin color. Carter looked too, grinning foolishly. "Looks pretty fancy, boss. Wonder if she's rich?" "Rich or not, we'll see," Thompson smirked, a malicious idea flashing. "But definitely the type who's easy to talk to. Let's go check her papers. Maybe we can have a little fun. Consider it getting acquainted with a foreign beauty." He saw this as an opportunity to exert power and satisfy his lecherous tendencies. Thus, the two officers abandoned their official patrol duties, heading straight for Nadia, initiating their charade of harassment and abuse of power. The confrontation unfolded quickly. Thompson demanded identification in a condescending tone. Nadia, though surprised and annoyed that this unwanted attention could compromise her cover, calmly presented the fake French passport bearing the name Isabelle Moreau. The document, forged using advanced CIA technology, could easily pass a cursory on-the-spot check. But Thompson and Carter weren't truly interested in the papers. Their motive was different. "Isabelle Moreau, huh? Pretty name," Thompson said, deliberately drawing out the words, his eyes fixed on Nadia's face and body. "French? But your English is perfect? Must have lived in the States a long time? What brings you to Lincoln City? Traveling alone?" Carter interjected, attempting a phony friendliness. "Or are you here looking for new opportunities?" He emphasized new opportunities with a suggestive grin. They continuously asked personal questions, made indecent comments about her dress, her figure. Thompson even deliberately stood closer, almost touching her, breathing minty gum breath in her face. "Listen, Isabelle," he lowered his voice, feigning intimacy. "Here in America, everything's negotiable. You look a little lost here. If you need someone to help you out, or just want someone to show you around, explore the city, my partner and I are always willing." He reached out, intending to place his hand on Nadia's shoulder. "Are you free tonight? We know some great bars, guaranteed fun till closing." Carter stood beside him, grinning broadly, nodding vigorously. "Yeah, go with us cops, it's totally safe and fun too." At this point, Nadia could tolerate no more. The blatant harassment and crude propositions crossed the line. She took a decisive step back, avoiding Thompson's encroaching hand. She lifted her head, her voice as cold as ice. "Thank you for the offer, officers, but I have no interest and require no help. Please step aside. I have urgent business." Nadia's blunt, cold refusal, devoid of any fear, was like a splash of cold water on Thompson and Carter. They were stunned for a moment, then pride and anger flared violently. They weren't used to being rejected by women, especially a black woman they assumed would be compliant, so rudely in front of so many people. You dare refuse us? Thompson stammered, his face turning from red to purplish with rage. You dare refuse an invitation from the police? I have the right to refuse any unwanted proposition, Nadia retorted, her voice remaining cool. And now, please move. She intended to step past them. Stop! Thompson yelled, completely losing control. He saw Nadia's action as a direct challenge to his authority and ego. He needed to punish her immediately. He reached out again to grab Nadia's arm. Don't touch me! Nadia reacted instantly, pulling back sharply and swatting Thompson's hand away. Her legitimate act of self-defense was interpreted by Thompson as resistance. Ah! Resisting! You dare resist the police? He yelled as if he had caught a dangerous criminal red-handed. He turned to Carter, who was also stunned by the rapid turn of events. Carter! What are you waiting for? Cuff her! For resisting an officer and suspicion of illegal activity! And just like that, simply for refusing a crude proposition and acting in legitimate self-defense, Nadia Sharma, a CIA operative on assignment, was handcuffed by 2 corrupt police officers right in the middle of an international airport lobby, witnessed by hundreds of eyes. The cold cuffs tightened around her wrists, a symbol of the injustice and abuse of power she now faced. Pushed into a small, stuffy, and musty-smelling security room tucked away in a corner of the airport, Nadia Sharma struggled to maintain her composure. Her hands were still tightly cuffed behind her back, the cold metal pressing uncomfortably and painfully against her skin. The pristine white dress now bore a few wrinkles and slight smudges from the scuffle and escort. "Sit down there and shut up," Officer Thompson barked, shoving Nadia forcefully onto a cold metal chair. He slammed the door shut, then turned to face her, his expression still etched with anger and smug satisfaction. Officer Carter leaned against the wall near the door, arms crossed, trying to appear tough, but his eyes betrayed anxiety and uncertainty. Perhaps he was beginning to realize his and Thompson's actions had been excessive. "Let's see how long you can play high and mighty," Thompson said, his voice dripping with mockery. He paced back and forth in front of Nadia, scrutinizing her from head to toe. "Talk. Isabel Moreau. What are you really doing here? The fashion designer cover doesn't sound very convincing, does it?" Nadia didn't answer immediately. She quickly scanned the room. No windows, just a metal table, a few chairs, an old desk phone, and a security camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. She needed to contact Center immediately. Being detained by local police while undercover was a serious incident, requiring the activation of emergency protocols. But how could she make that call without completely blowing her cover in front of these two? "I repeat, I am here on business," Nadia said, her voice even, trying to maintain the Isabel Moreau persona a little longer. "And I demand to make a phone call. That is my right." "Phone call again?" Thompson sneered. "You're obsessed with phone calls, aren't you? Who are you gonna call this time? Your private lawyer in Paris? Or your real boss?" "I need to call my sponsor in the US," Nadia said, choosing wording that seemed plausible for a foreigner arriving for work. "They need to know my situation." Thompson glanced at Carter, shrugging. Maybe he was curious who this mysterious woman would call, or perhaps he thought letting her call wouldn't matter, at worst just hearing more lies. "Fine," he snapped, pointing to the old desk phone on the table. "Use that. But remember, speakerphone on. We need to hear what you say." He tossed Nadia's cell phone, the burner phone she used for the mission, onto a corner of the table. This was the opportunity Nadia had been waiting for, though the circumstances were slightly different than planned. She couldn't use a standard desk phone to activate the secure protocol. She needed her special phone. "I don't remember their number," Nadia lied naturally. "It's stored in my cell phone." She indicated the burner phone. Thompson looked at the cheap, old-fashioned phone, then back at Nadia's designer dress, suspicion clear on his face. "A famous fashion designer's phone looks this crappy?" "It's the phone I use exclusively for work and international contact," Nadia replied quickly, trying to keep her expression neutral. My main phone ran out of battery on the plane. Thompson hesitated for a moment, then clicked his tongue. All right, fine. Annoying. He picked up the burner phone and held it towards Nadia. Here, dial it yourself. Carter, hold it for her. Carter stepped closer, holding the phone near Nadia's ear as she couldn't hold it herself with her hands cuffed behind her. Nadia took a deep breath, focusing her mind. This was the decisive moment. She didn't dial a regular number. Instead, she used a special pre-programmed key combination. Instantly, Nadia's voice changed completely. Gone was the cool distance of Isabel Moreau, replaced by the sharp, professional, and authoritative tone of an operative in an emergency situation. Center, this is Nightingale. Authenticate identity, code Omega-7 Alpha. Thompson and Carter froze. Nightingale? Omega-7 Alpha? The strange terminology and Nadia's abrupt change in tone made them sense something was extremely wrong. Nadia continued speaking quickly and clearly into the phone, ignoring the officer's reactions. Activate emergency protocol broken read. Priority level, Delta. Current position, Lincoln City International Airport, police security room, estimated coordinates. Nadia rapidly recited a GPS sequence she had calculated. Subject unlawfully detained by 2 local police officers, Lincoln City Police Department. Identification, Officer Kyle Thompson, badge number. She glanced quickly at the name tag, LCPD 1488, and Officer Ben Carter, badge number LCPD 2115. Reason for detention: unjustified, clear indications of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and sexual harassment. Request immediate deployment of intervention and personnel protection team per Delta protocol. Acknowledge receipt of order. Every word Nadia uttered struck Thompson and Carter's minds like hammer blows. Emergency protocol, Delta level, GPS coordinates, precise identification of their names and badge numbers, racial discrimination, sexual harassment. This wasn't the language of a fashion designer. This was the language of some organization they dared not contemplate. What? What the hell are you talking about? Thompson stammered, his voice trembling uncontrollably, his face white as a sheet. Real fear began to grip him. What's Nightingale? What's broken reed? Carter stood rooted to the spot, mouth agape, eyes wide with terror, staring at Nadia. He suddenly remembered all the strange details, her unnerving calm when handcuffed, the sharp eyes hidden behind sunglasses, the unwavering confidence when confronting them. This couldn't be an ordinary person. Nadia ended the brief call after receiving a confirmation signal from the other end, audible only to her via a micro device in her ear. Request received and being processed. She looked straight at the 2 petrified officers. Her eyes were unmasked now, sharp as knives, cold as ice, hiding a lethal power and danger. The dynamic between captor and captive had completely reversed after a call lasting less than a minute. No. No way. Thompson took a step back, then 2, his voice laced with panic. Who are you really? You're not French. You're not a designer. Please tell us. Carter stammered, fear almost making him buckle. He fumbled forward, intending to unlock Nadia's handcuffs. Surely there's been some mistake. We sincerely apologize. Deeply sorry. Nadia just shook her head slightly as Carter reached for the cuffs, signaling him to stop. She knew the protocol was activated. Everything needed to remain as is until the professional team arrived. She didn't need to say another word. Her terrifying silence now carried more weight than 1,000 threats. Just a few short minutes after that fateful call, a time frame swift enough to demonstrate the priority level and response capability of Nadia's organization, the security room door burst open. It wasn't airport police or colleagues of Thompson and Carter. It was 2 tall men, dressed in crisp business suits, wearing dark sunglasses and professional communication earpieces. Their demeanor was cold, decisive, and extremely professional. They said nothing, just swept the room with sharp, cold eyes, stopping at Nadia in handcuffs, then looking towards the two trembling police officers in the corner. Almost simultaneously, the radios on Thompson's and Carter's lapels crackled loudly. The urgent, somewhat panicked voice of a commanding officer from the Lincoln City Police Department came through. "Thompson, Carter! What the hell are you doing in the airport security room? Are you holding a woman named Isabel Moreau, French national? Listen to this direct order from Chief Ramirez. Release her immediately. Do not ask any more questions. Do not touch her again. Secure the scene and await further instructions. Federal task force is en route." Federal? FBI? Hearing this, Thompson and Carter felt their hearts leap into their throats. They looked at the two men in suits who had just entered, then back at Nadia with eyes full of pleading, utter fear, and belated regret. They knew they hadn't just made a foolish mistake. They had caused a real disaster for their careers and possibly their entire futures. The arrival of the two agents in dark suits immediately changed the dynamics within the stuffy airport security room. Thompson and Carter stood stock still in the corner, afraid to breathe loudly, their eyes fixed on the newcomers with utter terror. One of the suited agents walked directly towards Nadia. He said nothing, merely looked at her with an expression of inquiry and respect. With a swift, professional movement, using a special tool resembling a small metal pen instead of a standard handcuff key, he unlocked the handcuffs clamped around Nadia's wrists in an instant. "Nightingale, are you all right?" the other agent asked, his voice low and discreet, just loud enough for Nadia to hear. Nadia nodded slightly, gently rubbing her wrists where deep red marks were visible. "I'm fine, thank you. Broken read protocol successfully activated." Just then, another group of people appeared crowded at the doorway. This time, the contingent was larger and much more official. Leading the way was a middle-aged man in a dark suit, his face stern, sharp eyes radiating authority. Special Agent in charge, David Miller of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Lincoln City Field Office. Walking right beside him, his face pale with worry, embarrassment, and a touch of fear, was the chief of the Lincoln City Police Department, David Ramirez. Following them were several other FBI agents and a few high-ranking LCPD officers, all looking extremely serious. Police Chief Ramirez saw Nadia freed from the cuffs and let out a difficult sigh of relief. Then his gaze shifted to his two subordinates cowering in the corner. Anger and disappointment flushed his face. He couldn't believe two young officers under his command could cause such a scandalous and dangerous incident. "Thompson! Carter!" Chief Ramirez roared, his voice echoing down the hallway. "Do you have any damn idea what you've done? Do you know who you just messed with?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Surrender your weapons, badges, and department IDs immediately. You are both suspended indefinitely pending investigation." Thompson and Carter, faces gray, didn't dare utter a word. They tremblingly removed the symbols of their police authority, placing them on the nearby metal table in utter humiliation. Two other high-ranking LCPD officers immediately stepped forward, collected the items, and escorted Thompson and Carter out of the room, taking them back to the department for interrogation. Their fates were almost certainly sealed at that moment. Once the troublemakers were gone, FBI Special Agent in charge Miller approached Nadia. He extended his hand. "Agent Sharma," he addressed her by her real name discreetly but respectfully. "I'm Agent Miller, FBI. We received the urgent notification from Langley. We sincerely regret this unfortunate incident occurred on our territory. We will be officially taking over the investigation of this matter. Please advise on your current status and any required assistance." Chief Ramirez also stepped forward, bowing his head with a look of deep remorse. "Agent Sharma, I am Chief Ramirez. On behalf of the Lincoln City Police Department, I offer my most sincere and profound apologies to you. The behavior of those two officers was completely unacceptable and does not represent our entire force. We pledge our full and absolute cooperation with the FBI and your agency to investigate this matter thoroughly and deal severely with the offending individuals. Nadia looked at the two powerful men standing before her. She nodded slightly. "Thank you, Agent Miller. Chief Ramirez. I am stable for now. I need to contact my supervisor immediately to report the situation in detail and receive further instructions. I will also cooperate fully with the FBI investigation." Immediately, a high-level interagency investigation was launched with lightning speed. Due to the extremely sensitive nature of the incident, involving a CIA operative engaged in a mission with elements of abuse of power, racial discrimination, sexual harassment, and potential impact on national security, the FBI took the lead criminal investigative role. The CIA dispatched a special liaison team to work directly with the FBI to ensure Agent Sharma's safety, protect classified information related to her mission, and provide necessary support within legal frameworks. The Lincoln City Police Department's Internal Affairs Division, IAD, also conducted a parallel internal investigation to finalize disciplinary procedures against Thompson and Carter. Nadia Sharma's official statement, taken in a secure environment established jointly by the FBI and CIA, became the backbone of the entire investigation. Leveraging the observation, memory, and presentation skills of a top-tier operative, she provided an incredibly detailed, objective, and irrefutable account of the entire sequence of events at the airport. She described every discriminatory remark and gesture, the harassing behavior, Thompson and Carter's blatant propositions, and their unlawful and forceful arrest and handcuffing. She also provided information about her Isabel Moreau cover and travel purpose to demonstrate she exhibited no suspicious or unlawful behavior when stopped. Other physical evidence quickly corroborated Nadia's testimony. Body cam data, considered crucial evidence. Despite suspicious interruptions, FBI technical experts worked diligently to recover and analyze every frame, every remaining audio snippet. What was recovered, though incomplete, was sufficient to show the condescending attitude, initial indecent remarks, escalation of tension, and the handcuffing of Nadia. Notably, the possibility that cameras were turned off or obscured at sensitive moments, like during the proposition, heightened suspicion of intent to conceal misconduct. Airport security cameras, CCTV. Footage from various angles in the arrivals hall clearly recorded Thompson and Carter approaching Nadia, the tense conversation, the blocking of her path, and finally, her restraint and handcuffing amidst the crowd. CCTV footage provided objective, undeniable proof that the incident occurred publicly and attracted attention. Witness statements. The FBI and IAD interviewed dozens of passengers and airport staff who witnessed the event. Their testimonies, while potentially differing on minor details, generally aligned regarding the officer's arrogant demeanor, inappropriate language, and the unfair treatment of the black woman in the white dress. Some witnesses even provided cell phone videos, adding further perspectives and evidence. Emergency call recording. The CIA, after considering security factors, provided the FBI with an audio recording, technically processed to remove highly classified information, of Nadia's broken reed protocol activation call. This recording served as irrefutable proof that Nadia was detained at that time and had to request urgent intervention from her agency. Faced with an undeniable mountain of evidence, coupled with immense pressure from the FBI, CIA, and their own superiors, during separate interrogations, Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter finally crumbled completely. All initial attempts to deny guilt, blame each other, or offer excuses like misunderstanding, work pressure, or inexperience proved futile. They were forced to admit to approaching Nadia without cause based on personal prejudice, admit to using inappropriate language, admit to harassment and propositioning, though they might have tried to downplay the severity, and admit the arrest and handcuffing were retaliatory actions after being rejected and feeling challenged. The investigation results were quickly compiled and reported to the relevant authorities. Regarding departmental discipline, there was no room for debate. Chief David Ramirez, based on the final IAD report and consensus from department leadership, officially signed the termination orders, permanently dismissing Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter from the Lincoln City Police Department. The decision was swift and decisive, demonstrating zero tolerance for severe misconduct and serving as a way to de-escalate the situation and show cooperation with federal agencies. However, the story didn't end there. With ample evidence of criminal violations, particularly severe violations of a citizen's civil rights, who happened to be a federal agent, the U.S. Attorney's Office decided to pursue criminal charges against both former officers. The legal battle was now truly beginning. Several months after the shocking incident at Lincoln City International Airport, the criminal trial of former police officers Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter opened in the U.S. District Court. The case immediately garnered intense national media and public attention. It wasn't just a case about police misconduct. It touched upon pressing issues of racial discrimination, sexual harassment, and featured the rare appearance of a clandestine figure from the intelligence world as the primary victim and witness. Security at the courthouse was heightened to the maximum level. Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter, now mere civilians facing justice, appeared in court looking haggard, anxious, completely stripped of their former arrogance and swagger. Their families and a few sparse supporters sat quietly in the back rows. The most anticipated figure, of course, was the victim, the beautiful black woman unjustly handcuffed at the airport. Due to the nature of her work and the CIA's absolute requirement for security, special measures were implemented to protect Nadia Sharma's identity and safety. She might testify under the pseudonym Isabel Moreau, testify via video link from a secure location, or even appear in a closed courtroom with limited public and media presence. Whatever the format, her testimony remained the focal point of the trial. When Nadia began her testimony, the courtroom fell almost silent. With calm professionalism and a clear, articulate voice, she recounted the entire incident objectively and in detail. She showed no outward anger or resentment, simply stating what had happened. From being approached without cause by the two officers, the derogatory comments about her race and clothing, the blatant harassment and propositions, to being denied help, falsely accused of resisting, and finally, being brutally handcuffed and arrested. Her testimony, backed by the extraordinary memory and situational analysis skills of a highly trained operative, painted a vivid and compelling picture of the abuse of power and prejudice she had faced. The prosecution, led by experienced federal prosecutors, presented an exceptionally strong case. They introduced a barrage of irrefutable evidence: Nadia's detailed testimony, consistent accounts from airport witnesses, video footage from body cams, however incomplete, still damning, and airport security cameras, the emergency call recording, findings from the FBI and IAD investigations, and expert legal analysis regarding standard police procedures, anti-discrimination policies, and federal civil rights laws. Prosecutors emphasized the severity of the incident, the blatant violation of fundamental citizen rights, the clear racial and gender motivations, and the defendant's systematic lack of professionalism and abuse of power. They argued that Thompson and Carter's actions not only harmed the victim, but also severely eroded public trust in law enforcement. The defense attorneys for Thompson and Carter faced an uphill battle. They tried their best to mitigate the charges, focusing on factors like youth, inexperience, work pressure, acting in the heat of the moment, and misinterpreting the situation. They attempted to portray the two young officers as pitiable, first-time offenders who had already paid a price by losing their careers and were now deeply remorseful. They also tried to highlight Nadia's initial, cold, uncooperative demeanor as a contributing factor to the misunderstanding. However, all these arguments appeared weak and unconvincing against the weight of the physical evidence and the powerful testimony from the prosecution and the victim. After many days of intense trial proceedings, fiery cross-examinations, and detailed presentation of evidence, the 12-member federal jury retired to deliberate. they didn't take excessively long to reach a unanimous decision. When they returned to the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The jury foreperson stood, their voice solemn, ringing out in the absolute silence. As to the defendant Kyle Thompson, on the charge of violation of federal civil rights, we find guilty. On the charge of unlawful arrest, we find guilty. On the charge of assault in the third degree, we find guilty. The foreperson repeated a similar process for defendant Ben Carter, and the verdict remained the same. Guilty on all major counts charged. Thompson and Carter nearly collapsed upon hearing the verdict. Sobs began to emanate from their families in the back rows. Justice was drawing near. A few weeks later, the sentencing hearing took place. Federal Judge Deborah Lee, an Asian-American woman known for her stern but fair rulings, presided, looking down at the two former police officers standing before the bench, heads bowed. She began reading her pre-sentencing statement, her voice resonant, sharp, and weighty. "Kyle Thompson and Ben Carter," Judge Lee began, "you were entrusted with a great honor and a profound responsibility when you put on the police uniform, swearing an oath to serve and protect the community. But you betrayed that honor, trampled upon that responsibility in an unforgivable manner." She looked directly at the defendants. "You allowed vile prejudices based on race and gender to dictate your actions. You abused the authority granted to you to harass, insult, proposition, and ultimately unlawfully arrest a citizen simply because of her skin color, her attire, and because she dared to refuse your wrongful demands. That action is not only an affront to the victim but an attack on the very foundational principles of rule of law, equality, and respect for human dignity upon which this nation is built." She paused, letting her words saturate the air. "The court notes your youth, your lack of prior serious criminal records, and your expressed belated remorse. However, those factors cannot erase or excuse the severity of the abuse of power and discrimination you perpetrated. Notably, your reckless actions placed the victim, an individual performing critical duties for this nation, in unnecessary danger. Justice demands rigor. This sentence must serve as a stark warning to all who hold public authority that no one is above the law, and all acts of power abuse and discrimination will be punished accordingly. Therefore, after considering all aggravating and mitigating circumstances and the impact of the conduct on the victim and society, this federal court sentences Defendant Kyle Thompson, 3 years imprisonment in a federal penitentiary. Defendant Ben Carter, 3 years imprisonment in a federal penitentiary. The sentence of 3 years imprisonment was pronounced clearly. Thompson and Carter stood frozen, unable to believe their ears. 3 years in prison. The lives of two young men had definitively veered onto a completely different, darker path, one of loss wrought by their own foolish actions. The weeping from their families grew more desperate. Federal marshals immediately stepped forward, handcuffing Thompson and Carter once more. This time, the cuffs were not tools for them to abuse power, but symbols of justice's retribution. They were led out of the courtroom in silence amidst the complex gazes of onlookers, beginning their journey to serve time for their unforgivable mistakes. The terminations and the 3-year prison sentences brought this notorious case to a close. Justice, though requiring complex and tense proceedings, was ultimately served in a relatively complete manner. It not only provided vindication for Agent Nadia Sharma, but also sent a powerful message of intolerance towards racism and abuse of power within law enforcement. The incident also became a costly lesson for the Lincoln City Police Department and many other agencies on the importance of training, supervision, and strict disciplinary action to prevent bad apples from damaging the entire system. Nadia Sharma, after fulfilling her duty as a witness, quietly returned to her clandestine world, continuing her silent but perilous missions to protect national security. The incident in Lincoln City might have been just a brief, discordant note in the complex symphony of her life as an operative, but it surely left an imprint, a reminder of the injustices that still exist even in the most unexpected places, and of the power of truth when brought to light. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this entire story. If you enjoyed this content, please hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories, because tomorrow we will have another meaningful story for you.